Hello everybody, it is Nicole from iiKiui, where I want to help you improve your art. Today I'll be teaching you how to use watercolor pencils. Now, I'm no watercolor pencil expert, but I've gathered these tips together when I was experimenting and found them helpful, so I hope that they help you too. Since Valentine's Day is a few days away, today's drawing is Valentine's themed. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop right into those tips. Make sure to test your pencils and their color range before applying them to your art. The colors look different from when they are dry, so it's important to know the range your watercolor pencils have before applying them to the paper. The color can also vary depending on the pressure, which leads me to the next tip. Changing the amount of pressure you use when applying the watercolor pencils to the paper can really affect the outcome. The harder you press, the more pigmented and vibrant the color will be. The lighter the pressure, the lighter the color. You can get a lot of variance from one color depending on how much pressure you use. Similar to using normal watercolors, you want to start with the light colors first. In this case, use the lighter colors of the watercolor pencils first before adding in anything darker. Remember, the whitest white you will get is from the paper, and in watercolor, you have to work backwards, working from light to dark. In the drawing, I started with the skin before adding any shading. The same rule applies to other areas. For example, when I was coloring the hair, I made a light base wash first before adding more pressure and darkening the shadows. In order to avoid creating visible pencil marks, I use a circular motion to blend the color into the paper. I find that when doing this, the colors seem to blend more seamlessly. In this example, on the left is how I would apply pencil in a circular motion, whereas on the right, I applied the pencil in a back and forth motion. Underneath that, I created a gradient into white using a circular motion on the left as well as a back and forth motion on the right. I think you can use either technique depending on the effect you're going for. There are a few ways to blend with watercolor pencils. On the left, I am blending a red into a yellow using circular motions. This requires some patience because it takes time to create that soft gradient. In order to achieve that, you want to start with one color first. Here I started with the red. Then I used the tip from before and used circular motions to create a soft base. Then I take my second color, in this case yellow, and do the same thing, but going towards the red. When they overlap, I lighten my pressure on the yellow, fading it into the red. I repeat the layering process, adding more pressure to the places I want darker, until I'm satisfied with the gradient. When you're doing this, try not to press too hard in the beginning or it will be more difficult to blend seamlessly. Just like the gradient, it is a gradual buildup of pressure. Start light, then add more when you want to darken the color. On the right, I did the same thing but with a back and forth motion. On the bottom left, I blended everything together when dry, then added water afterwards. This is the method I usually take when doing my initial coloring. On the bottom right, I did a wash of yellow first, then when the layer dried, I added the red. When I was adding the red, it was more difficult to create that deep red color, even when pressing hard. I'm not sure if it was the surface of the color before that made it more difficult to blend, but this is just something to keep in mind. In the drawing, I blended 3 colors for her shirt cape thing. I blended them all dry first, and after that layer dried, I added in more to deepen the shadows and create a more obvious gradient. Ultimately, like most watercolor, it takes some patience. Now, I just want to talk briefly about the drawing itself. I personally really like how this piece turned out. For some reason, I seem to create a video for Valentine's Day every year, but skip every other holiday, which is totally unintentional, but a weird coincidence. For this fairy, I just wanted the theme of hearts to show up pretty much everywhere, so I tried to implement it in as many places as I could without it being really obvious. For example, her bangs are curved inwards to sort of make a heart shape, but her hair buns are obviously hearts. Originally, she didn't have pigtails, but it looked really bare, so I channeled my Sailor Moon inspiration and gave her pigtails like Sailor Chibi Moon. For her wings, I wanted the negative space behind her head to be a heart, and ultimately the wings ended up looking like Flora's from Winx Club, which I'm not complaining about because she's my favorite character. I could sit here and point out every heart shape I included because I thought that I was being clever, but I'll let you figure it out. The full image will be on Instagram and all the materials are listed in the description. I hope you have a happy Valentine's Day, whether it be with yourself, your loved ones, or your significant other. Next week will be a tutorial on how to get better line art, so be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're notified of when that comes out. I hope you found these tips useful or helpful in any way. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment down below. So with that, I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today. Keep drawing, keep creating, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!